Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. On behalf of everyone here at the CREST Network, I'm Bill Giannone, and I welcome you to our webinar for January. We're going to cover some questions and answers that have come into us over the last several weeks during the holidays and into this new year. And we hope that you'll be able to get a little bit of information out of them. And I'm joined today by Dick Wagner. And Dick Wagner is going to actually jump right ahead and take the first question. So welcome, Dick. Happy New Year, and take it away.
Thanks, Bill. First question. I hear this because I'm on the phone coaching and advising marketers almost on a daily basis. I hear this question once a week at least. What do I mean when I talk about relationship marketing? Seems to be a lot of confusion about relationship marketing. Most importantly, relationship marketing is not about making friends. It's amazing to me how many marketers go out and say, "Oh my gosh, I had a great day today," and I'm always focused on trying to create as many friends as possible while I'm out there marketing. Well, I hate to be the bubble burster here, but there's not one plumber, there's not one insurance agent, there's not one commercial end user that wants to make friends, that's looking to make friends. No potential client, prospect, or customer that you have or could call on goes to work every morning saying, oh my gosh, I sure hope that I can make a friend today with a salesman. They never say that. Relationship marketing is about being credible. It's about being believable. It's about demonstrating a high level of sincerity. It's about creating trust. And although many of us aren't real good at this, it's about demonstrating empathy. The fact is that when you demonstrate empathy, you are walking in their shoes, and you need to get comfortable putting yourself in your prospects or your clients' shoes and think and feel how they might think and feel. That's what relationship marketing is all about. I'm going to rattle through them one more time. Relationship marketing is about credibility, believability, sincerity, creating trust, and having empathy. Now, let's be absolutely clear for those of you that have just logged on. Relationship marketing is not about creating friends. You might have that happen to you. You may create a new friend along the way, but your number one and primary goal as you go out in the marketplace is not about making new
friends. Good morning, Dennis speaking.
Hello? Somebody needs to mute. There we go. I just muted him. Go ahead, Billy.
I'm back. You're all done, and I'm going to take over. The next question, this has come up just in the last week or so. Is it true that there's another round of PPP loans available? The answer is yes, and the answer is that there are restrictions that are a little greater than the first round, but there is a chance that many of you will qualify. So let's cover what the rules are for the second round of PPP. For those of you who don't know, the PPP was originally issued back in April or May of last year as the Paycheck Protection Program. That's what the initials stand for. And it was a way for companies to try to survive through the initial stages of the pandemic when a lot of areas were closing down. And it provided assistance to the companies to be able to keep their employees paid instead of having them leave and have to declare unemployment. So it was a way to try to lessen the effect of the unemployment in the economy. Well, many of our CREST members participated in the program and were very successful in keeping their business going. And in most cases, Dick and I are both very happy to say with their hard work and the assistance of the CREST network, they actually ended up having better years than they anticipated. So congratulations to our members for doing that. Well, the government just put out a second wave of assistance, and part of that is they increased the amount of money available, and they're calling it round two. In this round two, anybody can file for their first PPP loan, or people who received an initial PPP loan are eligible to get a second loan. There are certain restrictions you have to be aware of, though. The first restriction is you have to have stayed in business through last year. It's not possible to take out a loan if you have shut down and you're now just reopening. So you have to have proof that you stayed in business. Number two, you have to have had one quarter in the calendar year 2020 where your revenue was at least 25% less than the same quarter in 2019. So let's just simplify it. If you had a quarter in 2019 where you made $1 million in the quarter, that same quarter in 2020, your revenue can't be any more than $750,000. That would represent a 25% decrease in revenue. They don't care about expenses. They don't care about profit. They're just talking about the actual revenue. So if you can find one quarter where your company had revenue lower than that amount, at 70%, 65% of a equal similar quarter in 2019, that makes you eligible as well. If you meet that criteria and you have stayed in business, even if you don't have employees, if you happen to be a sole proprietorship, you're still entitled to the loan. But let's just talk about our clients and the people that we work with, which are companies with employees. You're entitled to file an application for a second loan. The application should go, doesn't have to, but it should go to the same bank or lending institution where you received your first loan. The other restriction is that you're limited, once again, to 2.5 months of your revenue. So whatever your payroll, whatever your average payroll is for the year, you're entitled to borrow up to 2.5 times that average payroll. And that can be from either 2019 or 2020. So my advice to you would be, whichever year you think your payroll was higher, use that number. For many of us, it would probably be 2019, because many of us did take the liberty of cutting our expenses a little bit during the slower periods in 2020 if you slowed down. So that 2.5 month rule is the same rule that they had going back with the initial lending in round one. So pretty much whatever you borrowed in round one, you'd be eligible to borrow in round two. You have to have revenue. That means, your payroll has to be such that the total amount of your loan cannot exceed $2 million. For the vast majority of us, that is not a worry. You can't have over 300 employees. For the vast amount of us, that's not a worry. And the other last thing, obviously, the question is going to be, my round one loan was forgivable as long as I used it for the right things. Is the round two loan going to be forgivable? The short answer is yes, as long as you follow those same rules. As long as you use the money for payroll, rent, and utilities, basically operating expenses. You can't use it to fund jobs. You can't use it to go buy new vehicles or equipment, and you can't use it to take money out to take a trip to Disney World. So if you use it for payroll, rent and utilities, and you're able to utilize the funds in that way, you can apply for forgiveness for this loan as well when that window comes up several months from now. So this is a great opportunity for those of us who are still struggling a little bit to have the government give us a little bit of assistance. There was some really good news that came out about the first loans, because when they made the ruling that the amount of money that you borrowed was going to be forgivable, there was a little bit of catch that we were going to have to declare that money as income, or they weren't going to let us take that money, the expenses we use that money for, and write those off. Now they've given explanations later in the year where neither will have to apply. You won't have to declare that money as income, and you will not have to worry about anything you use that money for instance, payroll expense, you can still write that off. So this truly is a grant that your company got. There's no reason why, if you're capable and eligible to qualify for this loan, that you shouldn't take another stab at it. That's it for me, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. Should my company join a TPA? You know, I watch and read the different social media pages, of whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook, in some of the groups, and inevitably, I mean, almost on a daily basis, somebody is saying, what do you think about this third-party administrator? What do you think about, I'm kicking around the idea of applying to join a third-party program. Some people call them preferred vendor programs. There's some varying different terms: TPA, third-party administrator, program work. A lot of different terminologies are thrown into the mix. But essentially, a third-party administrator is an independent company separate from the insurance company that facilitates or administers the claims processing. And how they do that is the insurance industry sends the claim to the TPA, and then the TPA, according to some methodology that they use, and everyone has a different methodology, then they decide who they're going to pass that claim on to. Third-party administrators, for your information, every single one of them, and there's a couple handfuls of them out there or more in the disaster recovery, property damage industry. Of those couple dozen or dozen and a half, I can tell you that every single one of them has different rules, different regulations, different paperwork, different requirements, even for what equipment you use on the job, different requirements for how much equipment you use on the job. Some will allow for a service call fee. Some will only allow a service call fee on weekends or evenings. So every single third-party administrator out there has different rules, different requirements, different expectations, different demands, and most importantly, every single one of them has a different pricing structure. There are those out there that operate generally on the philosophy, if you send in a bill for $5,000, they're going to offer you $2,500. It just seems there are certain third-party administrators out there that just simply want to slash your bill in half. Some will only pay for 3 days of drying, even though you and I know that's silly in many cases. So the thing that I want to caution you about third-party administrators and getting involved with third-party administrators is be prepared to follow a whole volume of different rules and requirements and paperwork and reporting and expectations for every single different TPA that you join. Be prepared to accept whatever pricing they're offering on the job, on the invoice, on the line items. And I'm going to say this, you've heard me say this before. I've posted this on articles that I've written. I've posted this on some various social media sites, but it's my opinion, and I want to clarify, it is my opinion that a third-party administrator is the equivalent of you getting hooked on cocaine or heroin or other drugs. Can you get off them? Yep, you can, but it's brutal. It's tough. If you get accustomed to the TPA making your phone ring, sending you jobs, and you not having to go out and market for them, then when you finally realize you have taken enough of it, you've had enough, you can't take the rules and the regulations and the hassle anymore, you'll have to go cold turkey, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough because you're going to suddenly turn off the faucet of leads coming in, even leads that aren't generating you much or any profit. So I said my piece. That's the answer that I give to everyone. I'm Dick Wagner. That's my opinion. It's all yours, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. We get this question quite often, but it came up just last week, and I wanted to make sure that we can give some clarity to many of you who are probably, if not thinking about this, at least contemplating a capacity issue. How many jobs can my PM handle? Now, PM or project manager, from company to company, those responsibilities are vastly different. So I'm going to give a couple of different examples, and I'll try to do my best to give you a quote unquote volume capacity for each one of them. Let's talk about the smaller company where the PM is basically the jack of all trades. He's going to go out there, he's going to sign up the job, he's going to communicate with the homeowner, he's going to set the scope, he's going to do the sketch, he's also going to do the work. So he's acting not only as a project manager, but he's also acting as the crew leader. So he's kind of your, one size fits all guy. He may also be involved many times with either writing the invoice or helping to, put some meat on the bones for that invoice. This gentleman is going to be very busy. He's going to be tied up a lot. He's going to spend a lot of time on jobs. He's going to spend a lot of time monitoring. He's going to be doing a lot of things. So if you're I'm not going to call it a chuck in a truck, but if you're a, one-man operation where your PM is doing all of these jobs, you're pretty much maxed out at about 15 projects. And that only means 15 if they're spread out pretty equally through the month. Like if you're getting a call for a job every other day, that's a perfect scenario for 15 jobs. If you happen to have 2 or 3 jobs going on at once and you're expecting your PM to do all this work, that volume just there is going to overwhelm him and it's going to set your company back. So if you are operating like this, where your company is basically in the hands of one person, understand that you're really, really handcuffing yourself and you're handcuffing your PM's quality issues. So I would say no more than 15 jobs a month is it possible for your PM to handle. Now, in other cases, the PM is part of a team where he'll go out and do all of the initial legwork, signing up the job, setting the scope, creating the sketch, things like that, all those initial steps. But then he'll have a crew come in that actually does the physical work. Maybe then on days 2, 3, and 4, the PM is the guy who's going and doing the monitoring. Maybe he's also handling creating the invoices. Maybe at that point, since he's the one who's creating the invoices, he's also helping to argue with the adjusters or those third parties on the validity of your invoice. Again, that's a lot of work, a lot of time. Anything more than 15 in that situation, you're handcuffing yourself as well, and you're not allowing him to do the job to the best of his ability. So you can see as we start to limit the things that we ask our PM to be responsible for, we can actually increase his volatility, his volume of work done, and decrease the volatility of how well he can do that job. So the next thing I would recommend is if you have a PM who's presenting themselves like that, and if you happen to be large enough where he's not doing the work, by all means, I would say to make sure he does all of the initial part of the work. And if you can, at least take away the monitoring aspect from him. Either go out and hire a guy whose only job it is to go around to all of your projects and monitor. If you're doing more than 20 projects in a month, you need a monitor. You need someone to do that, or you need another crew who can pick up that slack. I'm a big believer in not using two-man crews to do monitoring because it's just difficult to get paid the proper amount of money from these insurance companies for two-man monitoring. It's just hard to justify it. So my recommendation would be go out and hire a person whose sole job it is to monitor, kind of as a support person for the PM. But if I do that, I promise you, your PM now can handle between 20 and 25 jobs a month if they don't have to monitor, even if they're still doing all that other work on the invoicing, including helping with the collections process. They can easily handle 20 to 25 jobs. So now you've just jumped up your capabilities for the most important person. Remember, getting the work signed up, clearly explaining it to the homeowner so that they're on your side and they're an advocate for you throughout the process, as well as making sure you have a really good sketch and scope at the start of a project. Those are the most important steps in the project. Everything else, including collections, hinges upon how well that job is done. So if we let the PM do the most important work in his arsenal, and we let him focus on that, and we can then replicate that over and over and over through good training and good processes and paperwork, we can make sure that we can get 20 to 25 jobs per PM done very well, very effectively, and that can more than offset the additional cost for the support staff to do those other roles. So just understand that, guys. Again, if you're a small company, you basically have one guy that's your go-to reliable guy, I understand that, and that's fine. But you understand that you're handcuffing your growth. That gentleman can't allow you to get more than 15 jobs. If you want to get up to 20, 25, 30 jobs, it's going to be difficult if you don't either change his responsibilities or go out and hire another person just like him. So understand that. And most times you can hire someone to take some of the responsibilities away from him far cheaper than you can to hire another PM and train that person. So if you're in that window and you want to get to 20 or 25, my recommendation is to give me a holler and I'll sit and walk you through a real simple process that you can make that shift and you can start to change some responsibilities, shift the matrix around a little bit, and you can absolutely see more revenue coming in, more jobs coming in, and having them done bigger and better. Thanks, Dick.
All right. What are your thoughts on working with a public adjuster? I'm asked this fairly often, and I remember the specific client that asked me this. It was back in December. It was, if I remember, it was just before the holidays. They had a situation where the homeowner was just getting jerked around really bad, and the restoration contractor was asking me if I thought he should recommend or encourage or suggest to the policyholder that they hire a public adjuster. I can tell you that for many restorers, the idea of a restoration company working with a public adjuster has become negative. And almost always that's because there is no advance arrangement, there is no relationship built, there's no talking with public adjusters in your community to set the stage and make both you and the public adjuster comfortable with each other. Just like there are honest and not so honest restoration contractors, honest and not so honest insurance adjusters, and honest and not so honest public adjusters. It's important to do your homework, do your investigation, reach out to some PAs in your community, develop relationships. I know of many contractors that regularly, day in and day out, have great relationships with public adjusters in their communities. And those PAs are often quietly called in to a job by the contractor, or the contractor encouraging the homeowner to do that. And in those cases, that public adjuster, the ones with integrity, which is, I believe, the vast majority, that public adjuster will work with that contractor to help get that job locked in and complete. You see, one of the things that is a great confusion, it's very often mistaken. Contractors fall into this trap a lot, is they tend to want to do their own policy interpretation, and you cannot. You do not have the legal right or authority to do that. In fact, in the restoration world, you're forbidden from interpreting the language in an insurance policy. That ability to interpret policy is reserved exclusively for lawyers, the insurance agent, and their brokers, and public adjusters. The cool thing about it is when the public adjuster is involved, the public adjuster is the one that can have and will have the direct communication with the insurance adjuster, the carrier's adjuster. And even better is the PAs, have the ability, the know-how, the skill for collections to get you paid, to get the policyholder paid. And that's just so vital. So I would encourage you, don't say, I don't want any part of insurance or public adjusters. Don't draw the line in the sand that clearly, because and I know why. I know why so many contractors do that. They say, well, geez, what if my insurance agent, what if the insurance adjuster finds out that I recommended a public adjuster? I understand that could be a bit of a problem. However, if you are quiet, discreet, appropriate, call the public adjuster to come out and introduce them to the homeowner, and let the public adjuster do his selling, there really isn't any reason for you to be directly involved in that. The public adjuster will ensure that you do the work and will ensure that you get paid. And in almost every single situation, the job will be done complete, and every line item will be properly accounted for, and you will get paid. So don't just rule out PAs. You might know one or two that you're not comfortable with. Reach out for PAs in your market. Google search them and go and introduce yourself. Meet them. Have lunch with them. Build a relationship with them. I think you will be shocked at how many of them will send you additional work.
Dick, just a quick commentary on my part before I move on. It's sometimes amazing to me the negative outlook that a lot of people in our industry have towards public adjusters. And yet at the same time, going back to one of your earlier questions, there are so many restorers willing and desiring to work with TPAs. TPAs, despite the initials, are not third parties. They're advocates for the insurance company. They have nothing to do with, quote unquote, our side. PAs only work on our side, and yet people are averse to working with others on our side. It just goes to show you sometimes the overall lack of seeing the bigger picture. I just wanted to get that out there.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah. Next question that I've gotten, I wanted to share this, and once again, this goes towards a lot of things that you guys are experiencing every day, and it does seem to be getting worse. Is it me, or are the carriers getting worse with paying our bills? It's not you. The carriers are getting worse. They are getting, just like, not to make it political, but just like what's happening in our country with the polarization of opinion, I believe that's what's happening in our industry as well. I think things like that happen in the common space tend to find their way into people's homes, into people's lives and relationships. They also find their way into business life. And I absolutely think what's going on right now is there's a polarization happening in our industry. There's an us versus them. And it's been going on for quite some time, but it's becoming a lot more belligerent now. There had been, in the past few years, I've spent quite a bit of time coaching and giving webinars and giving seminars and going all over the country teaching ways in which to communicate effectively with restoration insurance companies, with restoration third parties, different tricks, techniques, and communication tools that we can use in order to at least try to level the playing field and give us a fighting chance. And I've noticed over the last 6 months or so, and maybe it's COVID and maybe there's just a tension in the country because of that, but in the last 6 months or so, there tends to be far less ability on our part to have an open dialogue with anybody on the other side. And it is happening. I'm not going to mention specific companies or specific names because from region to region, it does matter. There are certain individuals in certain parts of the country who work for certain companies who are just incredibly difficult to deal with. And you may not have to deal with them on the West Coast, but if you happen to be up in the Great Lakes area, they're terrible to work with. So I'm not going to specifically pinpoint any one company or any one third party or peer review company, but as a general rule, they are getting more difficult. We're hearing things like, we're just going to give it to our peer review and whatever they tell us is what we're going to pay. We're hearing things like, just because you have to do it doesn't mean we have to pay you for it. We're also hearing things like, nobody's telling you you have to use our price, but we're only going to pay you this price. Those are stances that when they take them, there's no ability to go back and counter or no ability to make an explanation. When they come in and they look at your invoice and they knock 4 or 5 items on your invoice, there's no chance to go back and say, well, here's why I think it's a legitimate expense. That part has disappeared in the last 6 months or so, and it's going to make it a lot more difficult to talk about. Now, how do we counter this? Well, you don't fight fire with fire and just become more belligerent. That doesn't work when it's not a level playing field to begin with. When they hold the check and they hold your ability to get paid, you can't just unilaterally just say, well, screw you. We have to work harder and we have to work smarter. I've used this term forever, that you have to beat them at their own game, playing by their rules. So what are their rules right now? Their rules are that when they communicate with us, they have the upper hand. The easiest way to do that, it's going to require some change, it's going to require some discipline, but the easiest way to do that is, you know what? Let's not communicate with them. Our invoice goes to the client. The client is responsible for payment. We read that all over the internet. We say that to each other, but we never put it into practice. Well, one way to put it into practice is when we go to sign up the job, we have to make it clear to the homeowner that we're signing a contract with them As such, they're responsible to pay our bill. The most we can do is we can assist them in communicating with their insurance company about getting reimbursed. Okay, you hear I just used a bunch of different terms there. First of all, I used the term reimbursed. Most insurance policies are reimbursement policies. The language actually says that you will be reimbursed for fair and reasonable incurred costs due to your loss. Well, the term reimbursement means that the homeowner will have had to have laid out the money first. So the best way to actually get them to be reimbursed is to have them pay you first. The insurance company knows this, and that's why the insurance company makes such a big deal about wanting to talk with us. You have to understand that part of the game. This isn't just semantics, guys. This isn't just, well, this is just the way it works. No, it's not. It never used to work this way. The insurance company in the old days used to write out checks for whatever we said. Then they got smart and they realized that a reimbursement policy is exactly that. But if they talk to us, they have a chance to get our invoice lower so they can pay less. If the homeowner just pays our invoice, then now they have a much more difficult fight because they have a contractual relationship with a homeowner. And if they decide that they're not going to pay the homeowner what the homeowner already laid out, they put themselves in a bad spot on keeping that client. If they want to fight with us all they want and beat us up, they can do that behind the client's back, and they can also whisper to the client, hey, by the way, you don't know this, but we see bills all the time, and this $5,000 bill should really be $3,000. They're ripping you off. We've allowed all of that to happen because we, in our excitement of trying to sign the job or thinking the homeowner might not have the money to pay us, we sit there and say, don't worry about it. We'll take whatever your insurance company gives us. Guys, we've created this animal. We need to work our way away from that. So let's think about two things. Let's think about our initial process of going to the homeowner and explaining to them that this is their responsibility, their loss, and by paying us, that is the best way for them to have their insurance company involved. And then the second thing we have to think about is we have to think about alternatives to having them write a check out to us. And if you haven't explored the ability to have financing offered through your company by a third party as part of your pitch, you should really start looking into that. There are many companies out there that will offer it. You may have a relationship with your local bank where they might offer it. So you need to explore that as a real option because, yeah, you're right. Maybe most homeowners don't have the ability to write out a $5,000 or $10,000 check to you when you're done in 5 days. But most of them, if they understand that you could offer them 6 months, no payments, no interest, and within 6 months, their insurance company should give them their check back, and it's going to cost them nothing, that's a way for you to avoid having to deal with the insurance company. That's really the best way. If you still want to deal with the insurance company, there aren't many things I can tell you other than document everything up front, be as vigorous as you can with your documentation, understand all the things they're going to complain about beforehand and have your answers ready, but always be willing to take less money. It's just the game that they're playing right now, and it's going to be very difficult to be 100% on your invoices. So my advice, plan A, I think, is much better than plan B. Start working towards a direction that allows you to be in control of your funds and not the insurance company.
What things should we have on our website? As you know or probably know, Cheryl builds websites for clients here, and so inevitably, when I'm talking with a client, the question comes up: well, what should we have on it? We just don't like our current website. It's awful cluttered. It's awful confusing. So what should we really have? I'm going to give you 4 things that you really should have on your website, and maybe 1 thing that you should not. First and foremost, if you want credibility, believability, if you want them to trust you and your website, you need client testimonials, especially client testimonials that are in video form. and they don't have to be production quality. They can be simple 60-second, 2-minute videos from your cell phone, holding it up, recording your policyholder or your customer. And then to clarify, when you post that video, ask them to sign a simple acknowledgement or send a simple, it's okay to use my video in promotion of your company, signed sincerely Dick Wagner or whatever their name is. But please use the person's full name. There's been for years this little game that people play on testimonials, and they'll sit there and they'll write out a glowing testimonial about themselves, and then they'll say, this testimonial was sent in by Mary B, or John D, or Tom S, and then maybe even the city. Well, as you can imagine, there are many, many, many Tom S's in that community or that surrounding area. So, they basically, if they are true, if they are not bogus, people still think they're bogus. But if you use the person's real name, full name, it isn't bogus anymore. It isn't even considered bogus anymore. So customer testimonials using their full name is extremely important. Secondly, you need a call to action. A button or something that they should do to take the next step. It could be download an ebook. It could be subscribe to your newsletter. It could be pick up the phone and call you. Or it could be asking a question. That call to action is vital, because if you don't ask, they don't do. As I tell my marketing reps every single day, if you don't ask for what you want, you don't get what you want. So please use a call to action. It's often referred to as a CTA, but a call to action is where you on your website are asking them to do something. Call, subscribe, whatever. And then you need a blog section. You need on your website a button, a tab, a pull down that is for going directly to the blog area of your website. And on your blog, you can have articles, simple short posts, and you can have videos. But the blog is your way to teach your prospect, your client, that person viewing your website. The blog is the way you elevate your credibility, the way you demonstrate that you truly are a thought leader in the community or within the subject matter that you're talking about. So it needs to be fresh. It needs to be written and posted. And as I said, it can be a paragraph with a photo. It can be a short video. It can be a one-page article or a two-page article. The trick there is make sure your title is catchy. Make sure your title hooks them and reels them in. When they're Google searching a certain topic, your article should pop up, and your article should be of enough interest to them that they click on it because it has a compelling title. And then something that has really come about, it's been around for several years, but it is exploding on the internet, on websites, and that is a chat bot. There's a lot of different terms for it. It's a pop-up message box. You've seen them in the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner of your websites that you visit, and it'll say something like, "Hi, I'm Mary. Did you have a question?" Or, "Hi, I'm Julie. How can I help you today?" And those chat bots, you really need to incorporate one into your website. It's usually live. Most chat bots, you have the ability to say, okay, we're going to have a live chat bot from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then the person that is designated to answer that is made aware that, and the email or the notification goes directly to them and they respond. We have chat bots on all of our websites, and we don't get a discussion or a question or a comment every day or every few hours, but several times a week, that chat bot will pop up for that client or that person going to the website, and they will communicate by typing in their question or concern or their need. So please consider adding a chat bot, ChatBot, chat bot. Please consider adding that in to your website. It will make it much more interactive and engaging. And then I'm going to step on a lot of toes here. Yeah, but you all know that's me. I want to tell you about something that isn't acceptable, isn't valid, isn't appropriate on your website. And that is, and it's often on the front page, it's often a picture. Now, I'm going to describe this to you. I hope any of you listening, this isn't you. But it's a picture taken from the roof of your building of your parking lot with all of your trucks and company vehicles lined up at a little angle, all logoed, and then all of your dehumidifiers lined up in front of that, and then all of your air movers lined up in front of that, and then all of your other extraction equipment lined up in front of that. And I can tell you that when you post that on your website, it is the most incredible pat on the back, the most egotistical thing that you can post. It's a braggart. Hey, look at me. Look how cool I am. Look at all of our equipment. Look at all of our trucks. Wow, I'm great. Our company is the greatest. People are turned off by that. They don't like it. They're offended. They're disgusted. It's very self-serving. It does not advance what you're trying to sell or say. So please get rid of that off of your websites if that's you. There, I got off my soapbox again, Bill.
Thanks, Dick. That's great information. Last question of the day. Is it too late to make changes to my compensation plans? A lot of people think that because the year has already started and they have these great ideas about changing around how they pay their employees, that they can't do it because the year has already started. Well, there's no bad time to make a change to compensation as long as it meets two criteria. Number one, it helps, doesn't hurt the employee. That's the most important one. You have to make sure that whatever change you're going to make in compensation does not mean that at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the year, your employee is going to be taking home less money. It's very important. If you make a change to their compensation plan, there has to be a reason that you're doing it that benefits them. There's no such thing as a win-win unless the other side wins as well. So always keep in mind that if you're going to make a change to your compensation plans, you should not be doing it unless it benefits the employee. Number two, if you're going to make a change to a compensation plan, have it clearly thought out, make sure you can handle that change, and make sure that that change has a benefit to the company that's more than just financial. Now, what do I mean by that? That's kind of very vague. And I know Billy talks in the world of vague all the time. So I'll get a little specific here. If you've got a compensation plan that's driven and based on commissions paid to a technician, but the commission varies depending on the profitability of that particular job. Or you have commissions paid to a PM, but that commission is paid based on a percentage of closing ratios for that particular week or month. When I described those things, to some of you, your head was already spinning when I got halfway through the explanation, and for good reason. A lot of times we try to get very creative and we try to incentivize our workers by telling them they'll make a lot more money if these certain criteria are met. But those criteria are things that have to be measured. And sometimes measuring them and keeping track of them takes an incredible amount of manpower and energy in the office. That manpower and energy could probably be better spent on other things within the company that need addressing that can have a far greater impact than $50 or $100 of commissions being paid out. So when I say make sure that it has an impact on your company, if you're able to change a 5-tiered compensation plan to something that's 1 or 2-tiered, that takes your office staff from spending 5 hours a week figuring it out to maybe 5 minutes, to me, that's worth it, even if it means you're going to lay out more money, because that extra 5 hours for your office staff now can get translated into things that could turn into tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional revenue. So I love the idea of changing compensation plans if they're a little either outdated, a little cumbersome, or not fair enough for the employee. If you happen to think that you have an employee that you're paying too much compensation to, and he's not doing the work, the idea isn't to lower the compensation. The idea is to eliminate that employee. Dick will be the first one to tell you. If you think you're paying too much for your marketer, you probably don't have a marketer working hard enough to justify that pay. I can guarantee you that if you went out and found somebody else who was working twice as hard and producing twice as much, you wouldn't have that gut feeling where you're saying, wow, I'm overpaying my marketer. So always understand that your compensation plans are probably fair if you're getting a lot of work. So don't lower compensation plans for an employee, because all you're going to do is decentivize them from whatever level they were at already. If you want to make a change to lower your compensation and you're firmly believing that your compensation is too high, you have to then analyze what that's going to do to the person you're changing it to. You may either have them quit or you may have to fire them. And then when you bring the new person in, you bring them in with a new threshold or a new level. Put yourself in their shoes. Would you stay to make a certain percentage less than what you were making? You might take that as a slap in the face, and pretty sure that your employee will as well. So to go back to the original question, it's never too late to make changes to compensation plans, and it doesn't matter what time of the year you do it. If you come up with an idea in July that you want to make a change, it's perfectly acceptable to do it then. Just make sure if you have any kind of employee agreements or contracts that you have signed, and hopefully you do, make sure they're amended to reflect as of that new date, this is what the new plan is. Dick, that's all for me.
Thanks, Bill. I think we've covered 8 important questions that have come up for both of us. So I'm Dick Wagner. You've been listening to Bill Giannone for the last couple minutes. We are the CREST Network, and we thank you so much for watching. Till next time, bye-bye.